Oh, wow. We have gathered here for our 10th rally for hope and kindness, which is amazing. I thought it was going to be a one-time thing in June, and it turned into a monthly rally every last Saturday of the month. I am so grateful for all the storytellers that have been here from the very beginning and have just joined us for each and each rally to choosing this platform to share their stories of courage, defying the odds, and just kindness, sometimes for the very first time. So I feel humbled and honored. Today we have a very special lineup, as always. They're always all special, but this one particularly is really from all parts of the world. And some of them, poor souls, have woken up in the middle of the night to be here and to speak to us. We have our speakers are from Canada, from Barbados, from Australia, from the UAE, from Minneapolis, from the UK, and from the exotic Houston, Texas. So we are very, very thrilled to have them here. And as we kick things off, a quick reminder, this is all about being human. And some of the stories you hear today may be quite human, actually. And some, if you hear something that inspires you or that you can relate to, or that if you see someone telling a story and they become emotional because they go back to that place, please show them that you support that you feel them, that you understand by either doing a virtual heart or by doing this on the screen. That's how we keep each other going. Because as we know, as we tell stories, we can often relate those back to us ourselves. So whatever we hear, we relate back. So keep that in mind. As we get started, I wanted to share something really quick about myself and my daily rituals that I do every day, including today that I started about 4 months ago. Um, I go outside, I look at the sky, and I admire it. And then I put my arms up, way up high like this, and I look at the sky. At first, I felt really, really odd. And I was so concerned about other people, other neighbors looking at me through windows and saying, what is this crazy lady doing every single day? And then I soon thought, you know what? This makes me feel good. I don't care what they think. And what I'm doing, I never thought what I was doing, but what I was doing is looking at the sky as my energy source, and all of its beauty was trickling down through my fingertips, all the way down through my arms, all the way down through my torso, and all the way down through my legs and feet. And that, after doing that for just 1 second, sometimes even more because it felt so refreshing, I felt so ready to start the day. I soon realized that after the day was over, I felt quite exhausted and sometimes going to bed still stressful and still with lots of thoughts in my mind. And I said, well, what about if I do this at night too? So I started going out in the evenings and I started doing the exact same things. And mind you, still that ego inside of me, that voice inside of me is like, you are a crazy lady. People have their lights on, they have their windows open, they're going to see you. Or even if your kids come see you or your husband, what are they going to think? I'm more aware now, more self-aware of those thoughts and think, you know what, I don't care what they think. This is good for me. And if I'm being good to me, I can be good to others. So I started doing that at night, and I never, ever, ever realized how beautiful all the stars are, how many stars are, which stars twinkle more at me than others, the different sizes of the brightness in the sky. Sometimes there's clouds at night, sometimes there's not. So I started doing that and getting energy from the stars. And I thought, what an amazing way to go to bed. And it felt refreshed. So I want you guys to think about what are the things often we may take for granted that are just outside of us within reach that can energize us, that we may come across every single day, but we are so busy we don't take the time to look at them or to really captivate and observe its beauty. It's through that beauty that we can find the beauty within ourselves and remind us about the beauty within ourselves, that in turn we can make others see the beauty within them. So that is, I just wanted to share that ritual with you. If you feel like doing it yourself, give it a try. It's very refreshing. It connects you back to who we all are, which is energy connecting with each other. And just, it's a beautiful way to start the day and end the day. And what better way to start the day today than these amazing storytellers? Who's ready to be inspired? Yes. All right. Quick shout out to so many people here. Humans First community. I love my Humans First community. I am here today a lot because of them giving me the courage. Shout out to Houston Writers Guild, who's here as well, that have enriched my life in a lot of ways. Shout out to IFMA, my IFMA family, who's here. It's been a big part of me growing up and in my career. Shout out to DeSede Land, Stephen DeSede, and the Soul Shifters, who are a critical part of my growth, especially in the past 3 and 6 months. And I wouldn't have had the courage to look up at the sky and put my arms up every single morning and every single evening. And there's so many other people from college, people from all walks of life that are here. So I really appreciate you, and careers and past employees. I really appreciate you. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first speaker, or storyteller rather, is Dorothy. And Dorothy, I recently just spoke to, but I feel like I've known her for a while. Dorothy is so easy to talk to. I could feel the love and the power in her from the moment we said hello. And even actually from the moment that we exchanged messages on LinkedIn. She has this thing about her that is a lot of care. She's incredibly strong. She's gone through a lot, and yet she's there to overcome courage and make others overcome their fears as well. Dorothy, it's such a pleasure to be here, for you to be here, and for me to be here too.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. And exactly, it felt like we were best friends right off the hop. So I do appreciate that. And I'm extremely humbled to be sharing my story in front of all of you. I mean, from Barbados to the UK, that's just absolutely blows my mind. And who thought that a pandemic would bring this all together eventually, right? So a little bit about my background. I'm Dorothy O'Dell, and I am from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And my life story starts off, I was bullied pretty much my entire public school career for, being overweight, which led to massive low self-esteem issues, which then led to opening myself up to being in abusive relationships, both professionally and personally. And then growing up, my parents were chronically ill, anything from heart and stroke to lupus to diabetes. Now we're kidney failure, and now we're on round 2 of cancer with my dad. So it's been definitely a whirlwind with that. And my dad's brother took his life 23 years ago, Christmas Day. So we're no stranger to mental illness in the family. And so that added with everything else, it always felt like we were coming in and out of chaos. To me, that was normal, because if that's all you've ever known, that's how you live your life. So when I actually was surrounding myself with different people and I'm finding their life stories, I'm like, man, we are messed up. But I guess it's just embracing where I was at with that. And growing up in those times, I felt very alone. I felt that no one really cared, and there was really no one for me to talk to back at that time. So I felt very alone, and it wasn't until I hit my 30s that I realized that, there was more to life than that. And being in those abusive relationships, I mean, I've worked in places where I've had phones whizzed by my head. It just unbelievable the amount of abuse that actually does go on in the workplace. And as well, after leaving that abusive relationship, actually, it's just in the at the end of that relationship, and that's when I had come to know God. And I had a friend of mine. I was in a financial services business at that time, and she brought me to one of her churches. And so I firmly believe that that is who saved me from that relationship, because I was constantly, the one paying for things in that relationship. And it was, he had asked me for so many different things. And this one thing he wanted was a Guitar Hero. And I said to him in front of his friends, I said, don't ever ask me for that again. Don't. Through most of our relationship, he had actually been laid off and wasn't working. So I was taking care of all that. And then when I lost my job, I had two jobs. And when I lost my main job, then I was no longer good enough. And that's when he decided that he didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. After going through 4 years of coming home to wasn't sure if I coming home to Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, and always making me feel that it was my fault. And if I changed my mind about something, it was like a whole other person that I was seeing come out of him. And I was at such a low point. There were times that I thought that I shouldn't even be there. There was times that I thought, who cares? No one's going to care if I just take my life and just be done with it, because I didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. But then I knew what it was like for myself, and I knew what it was like to lose my uncle in the way that we lost him. And I have two amazing nephews, and I knew that I just could not do that to them. So back when they were younger, I had taken this picture of them. It was back then Walmart had the photo studios, and I had this picture, and I had it framed. And whenever I thought that life was just so that I couldn't handle it anymore, I would take that picture out and I would look at those two, and the smile on their faces, it just made me light up. So to this day, like if I still have moments where things aren't going the way that they should, I have that visual in my head. I immediately go to that picture and I have that there. So that being said, I did find happiness. Online dating is something to be desired. There's so many sites out there, just be careful, including Christian sites, because they are the worst. It's like they think that because you're Christian that you're an easy target. And there was a lot of different shenanigans on there. And I ended up, and I don't think I've ever told this story since I've been sharing my story. I actually was swindled out of $5,000 from one of the guys on there. And so, of course, I got off all of that, and I thought, well, I'll just be single. And it's after getting out of that abusive relationship, I just decided that I needed time to myself, time to heal, because there were times I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. Like I hated who I saw and hated who I had become. And, because I've always been a people pleaser. So if, somebody needed me to act some way, I would act that way. And if, being prim and proper in church, and then when you get home, it doesn't really matter. And it was just, constantly acting how everybody else wanted me to do, and always being there for others. And I never, ever, ever took care of myself. I always put everybody else first. And that's the way it was. So I spent 10 years just healing and doing different prayer ministries, trying to find, and it's like healing is like an onion. Each layer you peel back, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so then I decided, okay, I was going to give online dating one more shot. And it was Zoosk, the dating site that I had used. And I said, okay, I'm putting on here, I'm only going to be on here for 3 months. And if I find my soulmate, I find my soulmate. So I did that. And I met Joe within the first week of being on that. And it's really funny. When I first shared the story, he kind of got mad at me. But when I wrote his profile, there were certain things that they had to have. They had to have a job. They had to be single, not separated, single, and they, had to have some kind of humanity in them. Is basically what they had to have. Those were the top three, and be nice to others. So he had everything, but it said separated. So I had swiped past his profile, and then I don't know what I did. Since it was new, I had no idea how to really use it. So I unlocked it, and he messaged me right away, and I'm like, oh gosh. So I thought, okay, I will just talk to him. What harm could be done in just talking to him and meeting another friend? So we decided to meet, and I knew that night as soon as I saw him that I was in love with him, but I never told him. And I had just asked my parents that question: how do you know that he's the one? Because my parents have been married for, as of right now, 44 years. I'm like, how did you know that dad was the one? My mom said, you just know. And I thought that was the biggest bull crap I had ever heard in my life. But it was true. When I met him and we were talking at Boston Pizza, uh, I just knew. But because of what I had been through, I was not going to put myself out there again. I was like, if he wanted to be in the relationship, he had to prove himself, basically, which is probably not right, but that's how it ended up. And within 2 months of meeting each other, we actually moved in together. And we've been together for 4 years, married for about a year and a half now. So it did work out. And thank you. And going through all that, though, I mean, we got engaged November of 2018 in Dominican, and came home. And the following April, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So trying to plan a wedding by myself, working full time, and then dealing with my dad's cancer, it was very stressful. And I decided to use one of the social workers at the cancer clinic, and they are phenomenal there. And I just decided that see what I needed. I needed some outlet. I needed to talk to somebody, because I was always just by myself and doing things. My husband is a supervisor at a mold shop, and he's constantly busy. Never know when he's going to come home, and then you don't air that stuff at work. And so she said, what's your self-care like? And I said, non-existent. And I that is when the journey of the self-care came into effect, because if you can't take you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't, then you're no good to anybody else. And there have been several times, like my doctors, at one point my parents and I had shared the same doctor. My doctor told my parents, I'm afraid for her. She has had so much change in her life over the last 4 years that I'm surprised she's still upright. There have been times that I felt like I was having a heart attack, but I just kept going. That's who I am. I'm a fighter. When life knocks me down, I get back up and I keep going and going and going. So when the pandemic hit, I was happily married. I have a stepson. He's 9 years old. And, at the beginning, there was some challenges with that, but I mean, we're really good now. And, but when I had moved an hour away, and I left my family behind to move in with Joe. And back when I was living in Chatham, I was doing a lot of volunteer work, and I felt that there was something missing, because when I go all in, I go all in. So my time was with my husband and our family here. And I said to Joe, there's something missing. I need to get back to volunteering. And I really wanted to do more. I mean, I love you guys, but I need to do something more. So I had been talking over the last couple of years about my life with different friends, and I said, just kidding, I should just write a book about it one day. And she goes, yeah, you should. And I'm like, who's gonna read it? So she says, well, I'll read it. So I'm like, well, when I retire, because I'm too busy now. So then the pandemic hit, and God said, now's your time. So of course I procrastinated, like everybody else would, or me anyways. And I started writing it in March. I finished writing it in July. It went to the editors by August, and it was ready to print by November. So the Overcomer: Facing Challenges with Faith and Courage is now available on Amazon. If anybody's interested in hearing the rest of the story, because the whole ins and outs are more in that. And then I decided that I was going to dedicate my life to helping other men and women overcome their obstacles. Because if I can do it, anybody can do it. And you know, and life is still in transition. I mean, my dad was diagnosed again with cancer December 8th of last year. So life, it just keeps going. It doesn't stop for anybody. And, you know, and I don't want anybody to feel alone like I did back when I was going through my stuff either. So that is my objective. And I've also, in the beginning process of starting the Overcomer Academy, which is it, how it looks like is different coaching programs and different homelessness is huge where I'm at right now, especially when COVID hit. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people lost their livelihoods, and there are people living in cars and trucks in Walmart parking lot. And to me, the basics of humanity, you should at least have shelter, you know, your food and shelter. So part of the academy is helping the homeless and helping them get on their feet, and whether that's, you know, help clothing them, help feeding them, help, you know, getting them a job if that's what they want, help finding that different, you know, shelters and things like that, making sure that they get proper meals and medications, and then, you know, helping abusive people that have been in abusive relationships, and helping people that have been financially destitute, and perhaps coaching with fitness. And I see pretty much every area that people need help with will be in this academy at some point, but the foundation is really, you know, helping people get over their obstacles, finding what triggers them, having their morning routine, whether it's like what Andrea said. My routine is I get up for 15 minutes, I meditate, I do my affirmations, do my journaling, and then I work out for 30 minutes, and then my day starts. So for me, that's one thing. For Andrea is, you know, going outside, and that's beautiful too. I never thought of that. So, you know, finding what works best for you, and you know, helping women lay down the foundation of that, and putting a self-care program into place, because it's not selfish to take care of yourself. And you know, I don't know about you, but my grandmother always said, it's, you know, you should need to take care of your man, and it's selfish if you know, you take care of you first. But if you don't take care of you, you can't, you're no good to anybody else. So I think I'm past my 10 minutes. So with that, I'll just say thank you for letting me share my story, and hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. That that was really courageous of you to share as much as you did, and I'm really grateful that you were able to connect with so many people. I mean, I invite you to look at the comments. I'm sure you haven't had a chance when you were speaking, but there's so many positive comments. People could relate to you. People are saying thank you for sharing your story. People saying how strong you are, how admirable it is what you've been doing and keeping on. Quoting your onion quote about healing. I mean, Overcomer Academy. I mean, it's. Do you realize how much strength you have? Have you given yourself a pat on the back lately?
That's funny. You're the second person to ask me that in the last 2 weeks. Michael P was the first one, and you're the second one. And I said to him, I realize it now, but when you're going through it, like to me, it's just that's normal. And that's all I know. I don't know how to relax and sit back and take it easy. I did say, you know, I wish I could have 1 month where nothing went wrong, but I wouldn't know how to act really. But to answer that question, yes. I mean, I realize how strong I am, but sometimes I don't want to be strong. There are moments that, you know, I just want to curl up in a ball and just, you know, read a book or something. But again, that's part of my self-care, right? Taking
Yeah.
time out for like reading my book and stuff like that. But for me, sharing my story right now, I feel so empowered. And the first time that I shared my story, it was like I was on the biggest high ever. So for me, that's part again, like helping others helps me. So to me,
Yeah.
that's um, it's all one. It's all intertwined. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you, Dorothy. We
thank
appreciate
you,
you being here
thank you.
and kicking us off to a wonderful next couple of next couple minutes, hours. Next, we have Roger. Roger, it's been a while. Roger is amazing. I met Roger through the Houston Writers Guild, and not only is he a gifted writer, but he's a man of many talents. One particularly is he is com- so inspirational. He writes all sorts of things, but I've seen him do various keynotes, various talks, how he connects with people, what he writes about. I don't know where those words are coming from, but it's amazing. I have several of his books on my nightstand. Actually, after I do my night routine, I go and read, and it's the powerful affirmations that he has to remind people why they should follow their destiny, why they are who they are. And I'm so honored to have you here, Roger.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for everyone for being here. I'm really excited to be able to share my story, or a story that I hope inspires and empowers you. My mission in life is to inspire people to live the life they dream and to empower them to explore their spirituality in whatever way feels right to them. And ways that I do that are as an author, as a writing coach, as an editor, and as a publisher. Today, my story is about fateful detours. And this is a concept that has changed my life, and I want to share it with you today. So, I knew from the time I was 13 years old that I wanted to be an author. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And I knew to take inspiration to action. So I immediately started writing throughout high school, through actually middle school, high school, undergraduate school. I kept writing and I was sending out to publishers, sending out to publishers, sending out to publishers, meeting with very little success. And I knew from my lessons in geography that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So I had my vision very clear. It's just like, I'm going to be a published author. I want to be published through traditional publishing houses because at the time, especially, that was the way to gain respect as an author. And I just kept doing the work on my own, doing the work on my own. And I was getting little bits and pieces of success, an article here, a play won an award, but it really wasn't the dream of being a book author. And so I decided I wanted to work on my craft more. So while I was a teacher, I got a graduate degree in creative writing. And as soon as I finished that degree in creative writing, I said, okay, now's the time. I'm absolutely clear. Everything else goes off of my schedule. I will teach during the day, and I'm going to write in the evenings and submit to publishers over the weekends. That's my course. I'm absolutely clear. As soon as I made that decision, I received a phone call. My department chair at my school said, you know, the librarian at our school is retiring. The principal asked me who I recommended to replace her. She said, I don't know why, but your name just popped right out of my mouth. Well, at that point in my spiritual journey, I knew enough to pay attention that coincidental things aren't coincidental. So, although I didn't want to change jobs and learn a new job and refocus everything, I thought, okay, I'll go talk to the principal. So he offered me the job, and I said, well, you know, thank you, but I really don't want to learn a new job. My goal is to be a published author. I want to be a writer of books. That's my dream. And he said, well, you know, you realize that if you leave the classroom and go into the library, you'll have more time in the evenings to write because you won't be grading papers all the time. And he said, plus you'll be around books all the time and that will inspire you. I thought, well, that made sense. But then I got to I wonder if the universe is just testing me. I wonder if this came up as an obstacle to see how clear I really was with my resolve to become an author and not let anything else stand in my way. But the principal said, okay, let me talk to you about this. He said, you have a master's degree. In order to get this job, you also need a master's degree in library science. You need a master's certification. That would require you to go back to school. Well, I just finished school. I knew I didn't want to go back. So I was feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to get this job. Maybe I should stick to my resolve. He said, I'll tell you what, let me check with the administration building and I'll let you know during our next meeting if you can have the job immediately. I'll put you on emergency certification. You have 18 months to get your library science certification. I went home that night and I prayed and I journaled and I meditated. I was determined to get the answer that I wanted because I wanted to know, is this a test or am I supposed to take this opportunity? I decided at the end of all that spiritual work that if the principal offered me the job and I got it immediately on that emergency certification, I would take the job. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't seem right to me. It didn't make sense that I would take another job when I knew what I wanted to do, and that wasn't it. But I was going to trust the universe that this was okay. So I saw the principal again. He gave me the job immediately. I started that summer taking graduate library science courses at U of H Clear Lake. 2 women ran that program. One of them, Maureen White, I took a children's lit class from. After I turned in this huge assignment where we had to write 40 reviews of children's books, she pulled me aside after class and she said, I loved your reviews. Why don't you pick out 4 or 5 and I will send them to Booklist and see if I can get you on staff at Booklist. Well, for those of you who don't know, Booklist is the publication of the American Library Association. It is an international journal. It is the Bible of review journal sources for librarians. So I gave her the reviews. She sent them off in October. Never heard anything, never heard anything, never heard anything. In February, I opened my front door. On my front porch was a box. In the box was a set of galley proofs of different authors' books and a little sheet of paper that says, this is how many words your reviews need to be. This is what your deadline is for turning in this first set. Here's how much you get paid for each one. I didn't do anything. I didn't have an interview. I didn't fill out a form, nothing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was being published in American Library Association's book list 6 or 7 times every 2 weeks. And every one of my reviews included a byline. My name, by Roger Leslie, was on every one of those reviews. But wait, it gets better. The other woman who ran this program, Pat Wilson, called me after class one day because she knew I was a writer. She had written a book years ago on creating programs for libraries. And she said that the publisher of that book had put that one out of print because it was outdated and they wanted her to write a new one. She said she would only consider writing a new version of it if she could find someone to write the book with her because it was too much work for her to do on her own. She invited me out of nowhere, only seeing the writing I had done for her class. She invited me to be her co-author on that book. Gets even better. So we start putting together, before we sign the contract, and this book is from Libraries Unlimited, which is one of the biggest publishing houses in the world. It is the main publishing house for books that go into libraries and books for librarians. So we're starting to work together, and we realize as we're putting our outlines together for the book and we get our backgrounds in touch, we realize her background is in elementary education. Mine was in secondary. When we finished our outline, we realized we didn't have enough material for 1 book. We had enough material for 3 books. By the time we signed the contract, I had a book deal to write 3 books for Libraries Unlimited. Within 9 months of from the time that I had that vision and I got very clear on what I wanted to do, to that point, I was a book list reviewer with my name appearing every 2 weeks in an international journal 6 or 7 times, and I had a 3-book deal from a major publishing house. Further, thank you. As a librarian, I also went to the Texas Library Association conference every year. I'd go to the exhibit hall. One day I would go as a librarian, just look what books they had, meet the publishers, figure out what I needed for my library. The other day I would go as an author, and I just started meeting with these publishers. Publishers from all over the world were coming to this conference to interest librarians in ordering books from their publishing house. All of the next 6 books that got published by major publishing houses over the next 5 to 10 years all came from my interactions with publishers at that conference. I wasn't sending anything out. My agent wasn't doing anything. I was just meeting people, getting into conversations. And sometimes I would say, oh, that would be interesting to me. Would you be interested if I sent you something about that topic? Other times, as in the case with the publisher Morgan Reynolds, we were talking about world literature. And I said, oh, I used to teach world literature. He said, well, I want a new series on world authors. Why don't you write an outline, send me a sample chapter of any author you like, and I'll consider it. My Isak Dinesen book came about because of that interaction with that author. What I learned, and what ties in directly with what Andrea's theme is for today, is that I knew it's important to have a vision. I knew it's important to take inspiration to action. What I didn't realize was how important the interconnection with other people can be. My fateful detour was allowing myself to get out of that very narrow focus of saying, I've got to do everything myself. It's all about me. It's all about the writing and my submitting to publishers. I've got to do it. It's all on my shoulders, to realizing that if I just connect with other people in your life have some of the answers and some of the passageways, those fateful detours that will take you exactly where you want to go. So as you are working on your dream, as you are pursuing your life's mission, keep in mind that you are connecting with people every day. And those people are your connections to the fulfillment of your dream. Maureen White was not an author. She had no intention other than to be kind to me, to send out those reviews. Pat Wilson wrote books as a sideline, but that was not her profession. But her invitation to me opened up that possibility and fulfilled a dream that I've been harboring for nearly 25 years that nothing had happened from. So I encourage you to watch for fateful detours, have your journey, have your mission, know your goal, but as you go along, pay attention to your journey. Notice who's showing up in your life and realize that those people that are connecting with you are going to be able to help you in ways that you never could have imagined on your own. That's the beauty of a fateful detour.
Wow. I wish they had a wow emoji. So, Roger, how did you keep going? That's amazing story, by the way. And I'm all for trusting the journey. That's like my life philosophy. How did you keep going? Did you trust the journey from the start?
I trusted that there was something inside me that would not feel complete until I achieved that goal. That's all I knew. There was a hunger inside me that said, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it. I didn't know any authors. I didn't have any writers in my family. I didn't know how authors made a living. I was told several times that authors don't make a living. You know, there were people who came right out and said, you can't make a living being a writer. You've got to be doing something else. And that was one of the reasons I went into education. But what really inspired me more than anything was that there was so much to learn. Every time I thought I had mastered a level of writing, I would get a rejection or I'd get feedback from an agent that made me realize there's more. I've got to keep going. I've got to keep trying. I've got to keep learning. And there was something in that realization that there was growing that I needed to do that kept me motivated. If I was waiting for just like a one-time, this is the payoff, this is the one book that I want, this is all there is to it, I might not have sustained the dream. But I knew that I wanted this to be my career. I wanted this to be the way I touched the world through my writing. And so at the beginning, I didn't know whether I had the talent to be a writer. You know, I mean, I could get good grades in English because I loved English, but had I known how much I had to learn and how long it would take me to get there, I wouldn't have continued the journey. But the beautiful thing about a journey is when we're reaching for the top of the mountain, we can only see so far up. So long as we can make that next precipice, so long as we can make it to that next level of advancement, we're good. Because once we get there, we'll be able to see up the horizon to the next level. If we're always looking to the top of the hill or the top of the mountain, that's way too far, that's way too exhausting, that's way too defeating. So what inspired me more than anything is there was more to do, more to grow, and I was willing to say yes and try to learn it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Lots of great nuggets here. And speaking about fateful detours, show of hands, how many of you thought you would be here today, or you just found this by chance? Fateful detour. Watch out. Some of these people here, you probably are meant to connect with. So, how many of you knew Roger before? Some of you. I see Roger fans came in. Yes. Wow.
I'm actually about to connect with him right now. So
Whoa. It's a
be
race.
careful, Roger.
It's a race. Get on the list.
So inspired from that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Roger. Appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Pardon me, Andrea. Roger, you're one of those human spirits and souls that has an ability to connect with people by any form of your expression, even your smile.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
not just your writing, sir. It's your expression of your human soul. It's inspiring.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So true. Okay. Next we have Julie. Where's Julie? There's Julie. Julie, I've recently, Julie and I interact through the Humans First community. We actually never had a one-on-one, but
We need to fix
from what
that.
but from what I've heard about Julie, she's an incredible human being, and I'm all about incredible human beings. And I was looking into a little bit about who you are, Julie, and it looks like you're a Brit Bajam.
I'm a Brit Bajan, yes. I was
Bajan.
born originally in the UK. My mother is from Barbados, but my dad is from Jamaica, or was from Jamaica because my dad
Very
is no
cool.
more.
Very cool. So I know, Julie, you have your own work that you do. You're a huge advocate for people. I know you have tons of work with HR. You have your own podcast. A lot of people here in their own way, in their own channels. You guys are all always heart-centered, putting people first, either through a community, a podcast, a project, through your jobs, through your roles. So I really admire that. So Julie, welcome. I'm so glad you can come here and share your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. I really appreciate it. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to everyone who is here today. Thank you so much for being here. I am so happy to see all of you. I do see my Humans First community here as well, so that makes me feel a little better. I, first of all, am an introvert. So I struggle very much with things like this all the time. But whenever I speak, people always go, "You're an introvert? Can't believe it." But I think people don't really fully understand what an introvert is. That's not my job to explain today. But I'm just declaring up front, I am an introvert. I am originally from the UK, Manchester. I am a huge Manchester United fan. Do not hold that against me. But I do belong to Manchester. So I always say to people, whether it's Man City or Man U, I've always lived close to football grounds. Either one of them are at the top means I'm still a winner because I'm from Manchester, period. And I moved to Barbados at the age of 13. I had a really good childhood. I come from a very big family on both sides of my parents, but my father's side of the family is bigger and they're predominantly Jamaicans. If you know anything about Jamaicans, they love food and they love to tell you how it is. And that's my family, pretty much in a nutshell, but they have nothing but love for you, big, huge hearts. And so I come from a big family of givers on both sides. My mother, my grandmother, very giving women. I come from a family of strong women who have overcome lots of adversity throughout their lives. And so I've never been a stranger to adversity, but I've always wanted to make an impact on people. I've always known that I wanted to touch people's lives. As I said, my mom moved us to Barbados at the age of 13. My parents separated when I was 6, and then my mom moved us to Barbados at the age of 13 to marry the love of her life, basically. Someone who she had met when she was younger, and when she moved from Barbados to the UK, they kind of lost touch. But over time, coming back to Barbados for holidays to look for my grandfather and her other sister who lived here. She reconnected with this man at some point in time. Well, as I said, my parents separated when I was 6. So when I was 13 and we moved to Barbados, I was the angriest teenager you could ever come across. I'm like, seriously, I just started high school. I'm now getting to know, getting some friends. Being the introvert that I am, I could always count my friends on one hand. And I was very angry with my mom when she moved us. But I understood in my 13-year-old mind that she was doing this for love. However, this man who presented himself a certain way whenever we came for holidays and we finally moved here and started living with him, this man turned out to be something that he was not. He was an alcoholic and he was very abusive. And for the next 10 to 12 years of my life, I spent a lot of my life on the run from this man who, because I wasn't his daughter, hated my guts to the point where I couldn't open his fridge. I couldn't eat his food. My mother couldn't cook food for me on his stove. I couldn't watch his TV. And he tried to kill me several times throughout my life. So I spent a lot of my teenage years on the run. And my mom eventually, at some point, something clicked in her that said, but this is my only child and this is my only daughter. How could I let anything happen to her? And I spent a lot of time as she tried to pacify him, living with other people, living with her friends or other family members, just to keep the peace. And I always felt like I was thrown aside by my mom. And so we had this very toxic relationship for a very long time. And it actually made me feel like I could have done one of two things. I could have been a very rebellious teenager and just been downright awful, or I could choose to still be good and do good things and see the good in people, even though all of this stuff was happening to me, and in different ways, so many different ways. In the Caribbean, in the days when I was growing up as a young person, there were two things that men always use as a weapon. They use something called a Collins, which you use to cut sugarcane, or they use knives, or they use rocks, but never had gun violence at that time. And so several times, as I said, my stepfather tried to kill me, either by a Collins, either by a knife, something. I was always on the run. And I felt like I could have lived a very, very rebellious life. In fact, in that fateful detour of my life, I could have very well chosen to live a life being part of a gang. I could have been on the street. I was always looking for a bed. And at the age of 15, going 16, I met the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, my best friend. And we got married when I was 20. And part of the reason why we came together is just because we're complete opposites. We are both introverts, but we're still complete opposites. And he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And for the first time, I met someone who saw me despite my pain and despite all the things that I was experiencing in life. And so we got married. Part of it was a beautiful escape, but most of it was that I did truly love my husband, my best friend. And I kind of started to live my life in reverse. You know how like most people, you go to college, you go to university, you get a degree, you get a job, then you find someone, then you get kids. I didn't live my life that way at all. Um, I then started to build a career after being married. And I spent the first part of my working life just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I spent time in sales, and it was in meeting people, going door to door, selling scales, cash registers, and photocopiers. At the age of 20, that I realized I hated sales, but I love people. And I love to hear people's stories, even the stories about why they couldn't afford to make the payment on what they just purchased for me for that month. And slowly but surely, I started to think about, where do I see myself? Where do I see my career? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? Do I want to just be this person who is filled with all this anger, all this bitterness, all this hate? Or do I want to propel my life and continue to make an impact? And I decided I wanted to propel my life and continue to make an impact. I wanted to be good. I wanted to do good. And the good part of me was always, is the dominant part of me. Whereas the bad part of me just exists in my head. Like, I play out a lot of things in my head as the bad me, but it never act them out. I mostly act out what is good, and the good part of me is what shows and reflects most of the time. But I had a very interesting life, to say the least. I started to look into human resources after I got a job in education, where I met my first mentor, who said to me, "Julie, you're really good with people. Have you ever thought about going into human resources?" And I was like, "Human resources? Me? No. Why would I think about going into that career? First of all, it looks boring. Second of all, it just looks like I'm doing a lot of paperwork. And like, that is so not me. I need to see people. I need to meet people. That's me." And she said, "Well, just do some research. I'm sure you're going to figure it out, but I think HR is where you need to be." And that started my journey of going into developing my career in the HR space. Been in HR for 15 years, and I started at the bottom and I worked my way up, and I finished my career in HR last year. Well, I should never say that. I didn't finish my career in HR. I took a fateful detour. That's what I'm going to use today. In that, I still am in the HR space, but I made a different choice. As I said, my life has been full of lots of different bad things happening to me. And it's either bad things happening to me personally or bad things happening to me on the job. HR is one of the most disrespected professions you could ever come across. People hate us for all kinds of reasons. They think that we're unreasonable, we only side the business, or the business thinks we only side with the people. They think we're fun suckers. They think we have no sort of life whatsoever. They think HR is just for boring people. Let me tell you this, right? I'm an introvert, yes, but I'm by no means boring. By no stretch of the imagination am I boring. And so I spent 15 years in HR connecting with people, impacting people, because that's what I wanted to do. And I lived my HR, this part of my journey, I lived outside of process, outside of paper, and I focused on people, and it bode me well. I took time to listen to people's stories, to understand where people wanted to be in their careers, what was happening in their personal lives. And stuff sucks. Life sucks. People are going through really awful, horrible, terrible things, whether it's an abusive relationship, a parent being sick, losing a loved one in death, losing a child. And I've experienced all of those things. I've lost a child in death before it ever got an opportunity to experience life. I've lost a parent. I've experienced abuse. I know what it's like. And so most of the time I can very easily relate to what people are coming to me with. And I've been able to help people, guide people, coach people. But one of the things that I came to the biggest realization of 2 years ago when I experienced my first bout of burnout as an HR professional was that I give so much. I give so much and I get very little in return. And it's happening to HR professionals all over. We are constantly at the front lines of our organizations, giving every single day. And I told myself, enough is enough. I need to start reaching out to my people in HR to find out what's happening with them. How are they doing? What's going on? How can I support them? And in doing that, I realized that I started to take a new fateful detour, which was where I am right now. So now I live my life as an HR for HR coach. There's always that question, who is the HR for HR? Who supports HR? I support HR. I advocate for HR, for their mental health, for their self-care, because I have been there. I have gone through every possible thing you could think of and then some, with the exception of a mass shooting. I've never experienced that, but I've experienced people coming on the job and hurting other employees. And I know it's not the most beautiful place to be. And I know a lot of times at the end of it all, I've done whatever I needed to do to take care of the people in my organization. But I've never sat back and actually reflected for myself and go, oh my God, I just went through that. Wow. Like, how do I deal? And a lot of HR professionals do not do that. We just go on as business as usual because that's what we're expected to do. We're expected to just be the person who takes care of the people. But no one ever stops for a second to say, who's going to take care of you? How do you take care of you? So to Andrea's point, my self-care journey started 2 years ago. And it started with saying yes to everything. And being a mom, it's hard to say yes to everything. Being a human being, period, it's hard to say yes to everything. But I started my journey of yes in September of 2019, where I started to say yes to speaking engagements. And I started to say yes to attending events and mixing with people. And as an introvert, not the easiest thing to do, but I've done it. And I started to live this life that added an additional impact, where now I get to meet beautiful people in different communities all over the world, where I would probably never have done that before, to say, you are special. You have a gift. You are loved. You are beautiful. Stay strong. Life is hard. Life is icky and it has a lot of mess around it. And everything that's happening in the world right now, whether it's COVID, Black Lives Matter, Me Too movements, no matter what, it's all hard. But we have to do the one thing that we can do, which is stay alive. Stay alive, stay focused, and find a way to take care of you. So like Andrea, I go outside every morning and I look across a beautiful landscape where I can see the south, from the central to the south coast of the island, including the ocean. And I live right where I can see the port where all the ships come into the harbor, and I get to see all of that every morning. We still have cruise ships that never left as a result of COVID. So a year and some later, there are still about 5 or 6 cruise ships that are still back and forth on the island, and I get to see them every morning. I don't put my hands up, but I do look out and I go, oh my God, I'm so grateful for life. Despite all the hardships, and sometimes I recall the things that I've gone through, the days, the nights that I've been running from my stepfather, I still recall some of that trauma because it's very real to me. But at the end of the day, I say I'm so grateful I'm alive, and I'm grateful to impact people's lives and touch people's lives. And when people say to me, Julie, I'm so grateful that I got the chance to interact with you. I'm so grateful that you helped me or supported me through this particular phase of my career. That's where I win every single time, every single time. And that's what I'm here to do for as long as I live going forward. I'm going to support HR professionals and people. When I support HR, then they get to support the people they work with and work for. And I just want to help those people to do what they can to be the best that they can. It's why I created my podcast, to clear up the many misconceptions that people have about our profession, to show the human side of who we are, because I believe that that's important. And so I thank you so much for allowing me to share. I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I've been toying with sharing this story for so long, but I thank you so much for allowing me to share it today. I hope that it helped or that it inspired in some way. And I wish you guys a great day. Enjoy what's left.
Oh my goodness, Julie. That's wonderful. And go like this. Go like this on the screen. Can you see me? Fist bump. Fist bump. Go introverts. Yay. Okay. Everybody, extroverts, all humans are wonderful. But I feel you. I hear you. And you mentioned you want people to see you. Well, I definitely saw you. Who saw Julie today? We see you for who you are. And it's amazing. Like I said when I introduced you, I had never spoken to you ever. But I am so grateful that Tony, who's here, brought you to my life in a different way. Because we had spoken humans first, but this I'm glad you're part of this. And again, the fateful detour, Roger. I tell you, that's the theme of today, making an impact. So keep doing what you're doing, Julie. You're an inspiration. You're so strong. Still, despite everything you've gone through, you continue to think of others and how they can really uplift their self-care. So I applaud you.
And Andrea,
Yes.
Julie, just really quickly, our past conditioning, which is very real, makes a lot of us accept and adopt and embrace societal labels. I don't know whether you're an introvert or not. We can't do it on the call right now, but what I do know is embrace your intuition and your instinct, because you're one of the kindest souls I've ever met.
Thank you.
It's your conditioning that's making you think societal labels of what you are. No, it's not. It's your intuition will define your destiny. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
So true. Next, we have Vik. Hello, Vik. So I've known Vik for a couple of years, and it's through different ways actually. We connected through the International Facility Management Association, where I spent 10 years working in that association. Wonderful people. They continue to be my family up to now, and Vik eventually dipped his toes into what one of my other passion projects, which is my Dare to Be chat on Tuesdays on Twitter, 8 p.m. Central. And he's been part of the Dare to Be community for a long time. And not only is he a wonderful at what he does in facility management and real estate, an author, I could go on, but he's also has this side of him that's also very inspirational, like Mr. Roger Leslie. So it's amazing when you think you know someone and when you first meet them, they have all these other facets to them that you would have never known unless you yourself trusted your fateful detour, trusted your journey. In my case, started my chat and I saw a whole different side of Vik. And I'm grateful to know you, Vik, and so glad you're here. We can't hear you, Vik.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I've been having some headset issues and some microphone issues, but I hope to persevere through that. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Vik Bangia. I'm the CEO of Verum Consulting. We're a corporate real estate consulting practice, as Andrea mentioned, corporate real estate and facilities. And in addition to my consulting business, I'm also an author and an inspirational speaker. And I wanted to be here this morning because we all need hope for the future. And it's opportunities like this that allow me to spread a little hope and inspiration. So today I wanted to share a couple stories that I hope resonate with you wherever you are in your journey. It's about being intentional, overcoming fear, and staying true to your core beliefs. But let me start by saying I have a pet phrase, and it's called jaywalking to church. Now, jaywalking to church describes anything in your life that you do without stopping and looking both ways, despite your best intentions. I came up with the phrase because we used to attend a church in California where decent and devout and faithful people with the best intention to be at church on time would dart across busy streets, sometimes with their children and babies in tow. And it seemed incredibly odd that their desire to be on time was sometimes, included several acts along the way that would disqualify them for absolution in that very establishment that they were trying to attend. So, fighting over parking spaces, putting life and limb at risk, literally breaking the law. So to ask if you're jaywalking to church is asking whether you're missing out on the good stuff in life. And maybe you have the best intentions, but you're not getting the right outcomes. There's many reasons that we all jaywalk to church. And I'll give you 3 examples this morning. The first one of those is fear. Now, maybe you remember the comedy movie Spinal Tap. It's a funny mockumentary about a fictitious rock band. And in one of the scenes, the guitarist tells us that his amplifier knobs go from 1 to 11 instead of just from the traditional 1 through 10. And the guitarist believes that his amplifiers are louder because they go to 11. And we all have a dial of sorts inside of us. It's called a fear dial. And sometimes when we're worried or nervous or anxious or afraid, our fear dial begins to turn up and up and up and up all the way to 10. And then sometimes, despite being maxed out with fear, we can take it to another level. We can go to 11. But 11 immobilizes us. 11, it becomes too loud to hear our inner conscience. 11 obscures our sight and destroys our peace and makes us vulnerable to health issues, prone to self-destructive behaviors. All of these things get in the way of success. So the biggest deterrent to your success is fear. And so think about this. How many times in your life have you done something without fear? If you were to stop and think about all the times you felt confident and peaceful and relaxed and certain, you were operating without fear. And if you took all the times that you were successful, you'd find that you somehow replaced noisy fear with quiet confidence in each situation. Because confidence is it's like a mute button. Confidence frees you up. It allows you to hear your inner conscience. It allows you to be directed by it. It sharpens your sight. It brings you peace. It strengthens your resolve. So the next time you feel like you're going to 11 on the fear dial, if you build awareness of that feeling and you practice muting, you can listen for the confidence that's within you that says you can overcome the fear. And with practice, you'll hear it. It's just like being able to pick out a conversation at a party. It requires practice and mindfulness to do that. Now, the second way we jaywalk to church is we lack intentionality. And when I turned 50 back in 2014, I decided that I was going to immerse myself fully in life with no regrets. I told myself that the only regret that I was going to have on this side of 50 was waiting until I turned 50. So I left my employer and I relaunched my consulting practice, Virum Consulting. And Virum was a company that I had originally started back in 2008, which, if we all remember 2008, right? It was the height of the recession. And by all accounts, a bad economy is no time to start a new business, but I did. But then I received a job offer that was just too good to pass up. And it was 2008, so I took the job offer, kind of worried about the economy. And I thought I was being very intentional in accepting that offer. But then I realized I had been jaywalking to church. And why? Well, because my choice to join that particular company was not well-intentioned. I followed the concern of my depleting cash reserves in accepting the offer. But in looking back, I was still really confident in running my own business. I never stopped to look both ways. I never asked why. And I could have made better choices in the desire for those best intentions, but I didn't. And then in 2015, I read a quote by a noted photographer and blogger named David Duchemin, and it inspired me. And the quote goes like this. It says, "I am moved more than ever by the awareness of the brevity of life, and that the fulfillment of dreams and longings aren't simply things that accidentally happen to us. Life is complicated, and at times it feels more like something that happens to us rather than something that we make happen," unquote. And that quote, that was the turning point for me. I realized I needed to live a life that was going to be 100% intentional. And that was the spark that I needed to relaunch my consulting business. And so I did. But part two of that story is that despite launching the company, relaunching the company in 2015, by mid of 2016, I had only made $6,250. Not a lot of money. Things weren't looking so good. In fact, I was doing better during the 2008 recession. I had traveled the world twice over. I had did everything I could to promote the business. I had made $6,250 and it cost me $96,000 to make it. Now, it doesn't take a genius to know that that math doesn't work. Revenues need to exceed expenses. So there I was with no new revenue coming in, bleeding out money. And I got a call from a prospective client that wanted me to manage their upcoming corporate real estate outsourcing initiative. It was an 11-month assignment that was going to be worth $114,000. Wow. I was over the moon, right? I went through all the vetting. I got pre-qualified. I filled out the paperwork. I was ready to start. But 2 weeks before the start date, the leader of that department called me and said he'd still like to engage me, but he wanted me to forego this pre-work that I do, something I call the VERUM process. Now, the acronym of VERUM Consulting, VERUM, is my process of discovery, and it's an integral part of my business. It's what I do at the start of every single assignment. It's core to my practice. It's foundational because it makes sure that everyone on the team is aligned with the goals of the initiative. And it's exactly what this client was telling me not to do. So I had to make the toughest decision I've ever made. I had to turn down a $114,000 assignment on principle. Now, remember, I was at zero revenue. The expenses were still increasing, but this prospective client was asking me to abandon my sole reason for being in business. But here's the beauty of the story. That time, I looked both ways. I didn't jaywalk to church. I respectfully declined the opportunity, saying that without the VERUM process, I would not be able to add value. And the prospective client understood, but they stayed firm to their position, and we parted ways. But 3 weeks later, I was in Phoenix, headed home to Minneapolis after a speaking event, and I got a call from a colleague who ran corporate real estate for his company. I had some time before my flight, so I offered to stop by for a coffee. We talked, and he told me he was looking to outsource his real estate function and wanted something innovative and disruptive. He asked if I would make a proposal, and I did. He engaged me for that assignment, which was longer and more money than the opportunity I had just declined. And within a couple of months after that, I had 2 additional clients. All of these were enthusiastic about the VERUM process. And within that second year of operations, I was in the black. I had recovered all my startup expenses, and I was able to continue to refine my process and build my brand. And here's the lesson and the takeaway from all of this. As David Duchemin said, life is complicated, and at times it feels more like something that happens to us rather than something that we make happen. So get that. Life is something we make happen, all of us. And while doing so, we need to stop jaywalking to church. And finally, remember, especially now, while we're still in limbo from this pandemic and we're still polarized from the politics of the day, and we're still prevented in large part from embracing those who need our embrace the most, we need to persevere. We've got people to hug. We've got peace to make, and we have hope to give to others. So if you ever feel during these times that the world doesn't need you, stop. Look both ways. Ask instead what the world needs of you, and then give it, because you'll soon realize that your worth is and has always been immeasurable. So thank you for the opportunity to share these stories with you today. My hope for you is that you've been inspired by what you've heard, and that you stop jaywalking to church, look both ways, and make something happen. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Vic, I am blown away. I never heard you speak about that. The jaywalking to church concept is brilliant. I never thought about the analogy of looking both ways, just as in your journey of life, and asking why. That's really eye-opening. So thank you for sharing.
I appreciate that, and you know, I'm as I mentioned, I'm an author. My books are available for free on my website. I don't charge anything for them. I'm not selling books, but I hope, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's corporate real estate related, but there's a lot of kernels of wisdom and nuggets like this scattered throughout, because my goal is to make people maximize their full potential in whatever they do, and it doesn't have to be corporate real estate. So I would encourage everybody to get linked in with me, or visit the website and download the book. There's a lot of stuff that's in there. But had a lot of revelations when I turned 50. So, you know, that was 6 years ago, but it's, you know, it's turned my life around completely. And it's hopefully made me, you know, much more other-centered in my walk. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
really
keep them
appreciate it.
coming. Wonderful
Sure.
revelations. Thank you so much, Vik. And as a reminder, all storytellers, please put, if you haven't already, how people can get in touch with you. If you have resources, books, communities, platforms, put them there. Even if you're not a storyteller, I know everyone has something to offer. And you may be someone's fateful detour. So go ahead and put your contact info there if you want people to connect with you.
I will. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ruqya. Such a beautiful name, and I hope I didn't mispronounce it. I had my phonetic
it right.
notes in front of me. So I just recently met Ruqya. We just recently spoke. She actually is interviewed Stephen DeSede, who's on this call and also is a storyteller, and that's how I first found out about her. And her energy, oh my goodness, her energy is just, I mean, her brand is a smiley face. And that is exactly what her energy is. It's a big smiley face. It just makes you smile. I mean, she brands herself as a smile strategist. I mean, that you don't have to say anything else. She's so warm. She's so genuine. I don't know her very well, but I can sense that about her. We had a great first conversation, and I'm so excited about your journey and where you're going, Ruqya. And I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea, for this amazing platform. And how you spoke about you stepping out at night and reaching for the stars and getting energy from there is precisely how I'm feeling. It is nighttime for me, and I'm picking all this energy from everyone and everyone's stories. And it's really, really beautiful. I come from the world of words, and my story began when I heard my class teacher read out Lucy Gray to me. I was in grade 7, and Wordsworth wrote about this young girl who goes into the woods, doesn't come back, and he wrote a poem, and I was touched. And the very next morning, I ran up to my teacher and I showed her a scribbling of something that I'd written. And I reached out to him and with all expectation to be applauded for having putting down my thoughts and feelings. And I was rubbished away saying, well, that's Wordsworth, you know, he felt for something, so he wrote it. You'll need some more time is what I was told from my teacher. It kind of deflated me, but that's not me to get deflated. So I kept writing because I am a single child, grew up in a household where if my mother gave me the glare, that meant sit up straight and don't talk. So I would go and chatter all I wanted on pen and paper and wrote what people began to understand were poems. Fast forward a couple of years, completed graduation and got married. But if you want drama, I can say I was just a teenager when I got married. Truth of the matter is I was just 10 days short of my 20th birthday. 2 children later, I'm standing before this pile of sinks, a pile of achievement in a sink. Dish after dish after dish. My son of 8 months old had just fallen asleep. My daughter, who had started school, was learning to color within the lines. And there I stood there wondering, there must be more to life than diapers and dishes. And when you ask an intelligent question, the universe gives you its answers. I had this amazing affair with words growing up. I thought, how could I put to use what I have acquired in terms of wordsmanship and do something with it? I thought I'll teach, teach children and studies, tuitions, take tuitions or something. But I was lucky enough to have someone around who said, maybe you're meant for something a little more than that. So I explored and I found out how I could be a freelance writer with the local newspaper. And that's how I became Ruqya Khan. I take from my husband's name, the Khan. Push forward a couple of years later, and I find myself interviewing 8 high achievers. It was the change of the century, and not the century, the decade. And actually, was it the decade? And one of the magazines wanted me to speak to high achievers. And out of the 8, 5 spoke about NLP. And I said, hey, this is interesting. The way they speak, the way they present themselves, so powerful. I want some of that. I'm one of those people, like my mom's glares went down and I said, yes, began to say yes to everything in life. NLP it was then. I'm a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. I fell in love with the TEDx stage and I said, I want some of that. Yes, please. And 2016 stood on the stage and presented with a dry throat and a clicker that it wouldn't work. I presented something called the art of possibility. And for it was born my SMILE strategy. I said, you move from feeling stuck to unstuck using gratitude and acceptance. And I said, acceptance comes when you smile. And yes, it could be that physical smile you wear on your face, because if you're smiling in a tough situation, your brain's going to go short circuited and go, okay, she's smiling, so there must be something good here. That, yes. But apart from that, we have a 5-step formula, which is silence the mind, manage your attention, identify the intention, let things go, and energize the possibilities. 5 things I knew. I didn't even memorize it when I did the TEDx talk, but now it's the basis of anything and everything that I do. Things seemed to be going great, and the children were about to leave the nest for university, and I thought, great, now they fly out. I will focus on myself. Thank you, Olivia. So I said, I'm going to focus on myself. And fateful detour time, because, they say if you want God to laugh, tell him your plans, right? So man plans and God decides. That's pretty much what happened. I flew out to drop my son off in Brisbane. And that was around the same time when my dad had to be hospitalized. He was the healthy one. And I had to cut short my trip. The plan was to drop my son, spend a week in Brisbane, fly out to Perth, be with my daughter, and then come back and focus on myself. I had to leave from Brisbane to go to the hospital street in India. And in less than a day, I lost him. He was my anchor. And it wasn't easy, but I took some time to be with my mom for a month and then flew back home and was very strong, because that's what you're expected to do, right? Stay strong in a situation. But I had connected with a lot of people, during that time when I was planning for myself. I'd connected with a few people, and some of them were people from the Ministry of Happiness. UAE has a Ministry of Happiness. So they started getting back to me and telling me, hey, listen, we want you to come and speak at our events. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have a SMILE strategy, but I'm really not in the right headspace. Someone was coming up with a book called Breakthrough, and she said, you have to share your story. And I said, I don't want to do anything with words. I stopped coaching, I stopped speaking, I stopped writing. But when the Ministry of Happiness, Prime Minister's office called me a few months down, they were persistent. And they said, we'd like you to speak at the carnival. And when it's the Prime Minister's office, you don't say I'm depressed. You show up and you present. And just like Julie said, and Dorothy about self-care, and when you start seeing people's faces light up because of you and what you have to share, you begin to look within and say, I shouldn't really hold all of this for just myself because I'm in a dark space. But that wasn't enough. What really moved me was when I was sitting in the corner on a bus ride. My children were getting together for the Easter holidays, and I still had to make that trip to Perth. So I went to Perth, and we were on a bus ride, my son and I, an hour-long ride where he was very grumpy, and I thought, okay, you can go to sleep. I'll wake you up when it's time to get off. He looked straight at me and he said, oh, no, I won't. I said, okay, what would you like to do? He said, So Ma, what have you been up to? He looked me straight in my eyes and he said, what have you been up to? And I said, you can't speak to me like that. I'm your mother. A very awkward silence. He obviously knew what I was doing. The mother card did not work with this child of mine. He said, all of that is fine. What about accountability? Ouch. I taught him that. There was no escaping. I was stuck with him for an hour on the bus. But it did get me thinking. I said, okay, I'll think about this. And I thought, and I referenced back to all the quotes I had put up on my social media, because you might have guessed I'm a bit of a chatterbox. So every time I have these aha moments where I think of something, I write down. Like literally, even now, I've been writing them down because, as I said, I'm taking energy from the stars of on the panel here. So I write down these one-liners and I started posting them on my Instagram a long time ago. And I went down to that treasure of one-liners and started writing them down. Initially, I thought of making a perpetual calendar, but there were more than 500 of them. And as I said, I'm a bit of a chatterbox. So I jumped from the idea of a calendar to doing daily live videos. I went to my Facebook page where I had a small little circle of people who appreciate my work. And I said, guys, would you like to see videos apart from just the quotes I share? And they all said yes. So when you ask and you get a yes, you don't kind of abandon ship, you push through no matter what. And so on May 1st, 2018, I started doing daily live videos. I sat on my sofa holding a selfie stick with the camera on it, looking scared as a kitten, doing the first live. Today was day 1063 of that commitment. Every single day. Thank you. Thank you. The way this has impacted me, thank you. The way this has impacted me is, it started out where I wanted to get out of this dark space, dark, damp. I didn't know what to do with who I was, with my words. And as I kind of mustered up the courage to go live, literally face the world, because I was spending hours under the covers, just didn't want to face the emptiness around me, within me. I just didn't want to. Don't get me wrong, my husband's amazing, but he also understood that I needed space, and I'm so grateful for that. And he also knew that when I'd be ready, I'd be ready. So I started doing this, and the interesting thing is I began to get messages from people who loved what I was speaking about. Simple messages, simple conversations, but everyday life. That began to be the change for me, for others. People started messaging me from ICU. Stephen knows this. There was this guy in ICU where his phone was on mute, and he'd see every day at a particular time, he'd get a notification and I'd be waving, hello, hello, frantically. And he'd wonder, what is this woman doing? Who is she? What is she talking about? And he tuned in to listen, and it helped him. Amazing stories like this. A couple where his wife was terminally ill with cancer, and they'd listen to my videos late in the night before retiring to bed, because they said it would give them something positive to think over, because there was so much of pain through the entire day. Things like this began to happen, and I started to present my smile as a mindset tool across corporates, helping educators, helping parent-child relationships. And suddenly it just began, as I said, became the reason why I do what I do. And yes, very grateful. Papa was definitely my anchor. And the realization, that aha moment I had, was definitely my anchor. Yes, my go-to place, my home, my everything. Yet ships aren't supposed to be in the harbor, right? They're supposed to sail. And when you sail, you take the harbor, you take the anchor along, you lift it up and you put it inside the ship and you go. So he lives within me, is the realization I have. I live his values. Come from that space of knowing that what I do is my contribution as his daughter. And also in gratitude that both my children are watching whatever I do, and they're there to stand by me, and they know that I'm accountable for whatever's been given to me. So I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to speak, to share, to Andrea, to all of you here, all the stars listening and sharing. So thank you. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
That was beautiful, Ruqya. You certainly do practice what you preach.
Thank you.
I can see your father's kind spirit through you.
Thank you.
Even though I never obviously met him, but that was amazing. And 1,063 videos.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
No, quite literally, no matter where in the world I am. So I've presented the smile. I travel also very often, no matter where I am. There have been times when I would present at 2 p.m. in the afternoons, UAE time, and then one of the trips in Melbourne, I was 9 p.m. So it was this contrast of speaking in the afternoons to late in the night was fascinating. So yes, crazy. It's beautiful.
Just to show you, you can put anything you put your mind into.
Andrea, I by chance was in Perth for basically less than a day, and Ruqya had met me online and asked if I would catch up with her. And when she found out I was in Perth, she asked me. So we literally spent 2 hours crossing paths in Fremantle, the port city of in Western Australia. Yes. And her 2 children, her son and her daughter, were there, and then they left once we sat down, and then they came back. And Ruqya was really, really excited to talk to me and had things she wanted to ask me, which was very sweet. 2 things happened. Her children came back to have a conversation with this grey-haired old man, so to speak, in their eyes. The way they conducted themselves, the questions they asked me, I initially thought I'll just keep it fairly simple. I spoke to them, for DeSede guests will know what this means. I spoke to them in full-on mode because they are literally a representation of everything you just heard, Ruqya. Your papa is watching down on you because your children are going to look up to you because they already do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen. That was a very powerful conversation we had, and always cherish it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ruqya. You're a
Thank
beautiful
you, Alicia.
person.
I'd like to thank Alicia. She's already subscribed to my YouTube channel. So cute.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love
Beautiful. Thank you.
I love it. Wow. So next we have two more. Oh my goodness. Lorna is next. So Lorna, we've never really actually spoken one-on-one either, but I've known Lorna through the Humans First community. I've been lucky to be in some breakout rooms with her in the past, and she has this kind energy about her. I mean, I'm just a radar, and I'm attracted to those kinds of energies. So I'm so grateful that she's here. I know you do a lot of work on inclusion, Lorna, and what better community than here, where we want to make sure we include everyone. And I thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you, Andrea. And it's lovely to see my Humans First colleagues here, and also my sister is also on the call because I invited her. So and I just the reason why I sort of agreed to do this was I think it's just great to be part of this sort of ongoing online community that has sort of been really sort of taken up since the pandemic. So I really just want to share my story with you. I live in London and I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher all my life. In fact, I actually dreamed of being a teacher from a really young age. And I come from a generation of teachers. My mum was a teacher. My uncle was a head teacher. I have 2 cousins who are teachers. My sister was a teacher until she decided to change careers. And as a child, I used to play every Sunday at being a teacher. I used to even get my mum to take photocopies of like reports and little worksheets. I used to make sums and sentences and say, Mum, go and photocopy these. And then on a Sunday, I would get up and I would take my toys out, and they would be my students. And we'd go downstairs into the garden, which would be the playground, and I'd go upstairs into the classroom to be sort of my makeshift classroom. And I think it was because my mum always wanted to be a teacher. She was a teacher in Mauritius, which is where my family originate from. And she wanted to train to be a teacher when she came in, when she arrived in the UK in the 60s. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because well, it was really because he would have been a student, and my dad and my mum bought a house, and obviously they needed money, and so they just decided she couldn't be a teacher, she needed to get a job, and she got a job and just throughout her life worked, but she didn't really fulfill her dream. And so I guess what I wanted to do is I wanted to fulfill that dream that my mum couldn't. And so I went on and I went to university, and I really cemented my dream while I was at university, because I did a lot of mentoring of young people working in schools, or sort of mentoring, being part of a mentoring program working in schools. And I really wanted to become a head teacher. It was that point that I had this goal to be a head teacher, because I didn't just want to help 1 or 2 students or 1 or 2 young people. I wanted to have impact on lots of young people. And so I really particularly wanted to work with students from disadvantaged backgrounds. And so I've always worked in London. London is a very diverse community. It's always known as being quite a rich, actually, capital city, but actually there is great poverty here. And it's actually, there is a lot of poverty, and there's lots of high areas of deprivation. And so I've always worked in schools where there is areas of high deprivation. And in my first school, I quickly became a middle leader, a pastoral leader, probably about 2 years after I'd started teaching. And then back in 2003, I became as well as a senior leader. And again, where my main role was what is called the designated safeguarding lead. That was one of my roles, which is basically safeguarding, keeping children and young people safe. That was one of my roles. I am also a science teacher, so I had to teach science as well, and do lots of other things. And at that point, that was in 2003, I was clearly on my journey to headship. I really did have this plan that I was going to be this head, but things change. Like for a lot of people, things change. I became a mum, and I have a beautiful 15-year-old son. My mum at the time, back in 2011, 2012, she became disabled. She had an operation that didn't go quite well, and that meant she became bedbound. And so there was a lot of help and care that I had to give my mum. And I did have a lot of...
Mute.
You're muted, Lorna.
Okay, sorry. So I'll start off by just saying that, like, my journey to headship. So I had my journey to headship, but things changed. And so I don't know if I said already that, you know, I had a son, I became a mum. My mum became very unwell, and I had a lot of setbacks. And so I sort of just felt that as a senior leader, you know, I was trying to sort of do all these things. I loved my job, but I was working like 12 hours a day. I was working and never feeling that I'd done enough. I actually spent very little quality time with my son, apart from obviously school holidays. And I used to remember that when he was about 8 or 9, I would sort of drag him into school on the Saturday morning, and he would sit in my office on one computer and I'd be sitting on the other, planning my lessons, doing all the things that I hadn't done during the week that I thought I hadn't done. And he would just be there sitting there and going, "Oh, mummy, when are we going home? When are we going home?" And I'd be going, yeah, come on, I've just 5 more minutes. And sometimes we ended up staying there till like 5 o'clock on a Saturday, and till the schoolkeeper said, "We're shutting the school." And Sundays also at that time, as I said, my mum was bedbound from about 2012. And so Sundays were spent going to visit my mum, taking food to her because I made food for her for the whole week, and really sort of just trying to sort of do care for her and give her food and just sort of our Sundays, that was our life. And I didn't feel valued at school. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel appreciated. And more importantly, I didn't feel happy. So finally, I decided that I would, you know, I wasn't getting anywhere. So after 15 years of being at the same school, I decided to move on. And I realized that I'd go to another school, and I went to another school, was a senior leader in another school. But actually I was realizing that the environment was not for me. I still wasn't feeling worthy. I still wasn't feeling valued and fulfilled. So about 2 years later, I decided to take the plunge, and I took the courageous step of moving into safeguarding consultancy. I realized that I didn't have to be a teacher to support young people and keep them safe. And I also realized that by being in education, in a school, I became institutionalized by the education system. And it was hard at the beginning. When I started my consultancy, trying to carve out my career. But I have to say, and that was 2 years ago, I have to say 2 years, I've never felt happier. I still have that passion for safeguarding. So what I do is I go and support DSLs, designated safeguarding leads, and other organisations to make sure their safeguarding policy and practice is up to speed. And I help other people do the role that I used to do. So in a way, I feel I'm not just having impact on a group of students, I'm having impact on a number of students across the country. I feel I'm making a bigger impact. I don't have to be that head teacher that I chose to be when I was a child, when I was at university. I actually spend more time with my son because I can work flexibly. I'm working flexibly, I'm working from home, you know, I can do the hours that I want. I actually am there in the morning to say say goodbye to him as he leaves school. Now the pandemic, now lockdown's over. And I'm then also there in the afternoon to say, hello, how's your day? I never did that up until 2 years ago. I'm actually more sociable. I spend more time with my friends online. My sisters and I, we have this sort of Zoom call every few weeks. I have my friend in Australia who moved to Australia about 4 years ago, who I talk to every Saturday or at least every other Saturday. And I actually feel that the people that I work with now, I've had so much great feedback telling me how much they value my experience, my expertise. And as I said, I feel much happier. I feel much more filled. I go to the gym now, well, once lockdown's over, but I was going to the gym in the mornings. I go running with my friend every Sunday, and that's part of my ritual. We go running around London, and then we have a great time for 2 or 3 hours. I feel fulfilled. So my final thing is to say to you is that, like me, actually, there's one more thing I just want to say. Whilst my mum may no longer be here, she died in 2016. She passed away. I really do feel that despite not fulfilling that goal to be a head teacher, I think she would still be proud of me today. Sorry. I feel she would be really proud of me today. And I still miss my mum very dearly. But I know that she's looking down on me and saying, you've done well, Lorna. So my final thoughts are that if you're not feeling worthy or appreciated, valued or happy, have the courage to change. Take the plunge. Seek support around you, as I have. There'll be barriers along the way. And if you have a good support network, as I have, I know that you can do whatever you want. Thank you.
Lorna, I tend to agree. You've done very well in your mom's words. And you are making an impact. You've already made an impact here with all of us. I don't know if this is the first time you told your story, but thank you so much. I feel like your mission is bigger than you can ever imagine, and you're following in the footsteps right where you're supposed to be. So you are making a huge impact. Thanks for your courage.
Thank you, Andrea. I mean, I just want to say this is actually the first time. I'm actually a very private person, and I don't actually tell people a lot about myself. And actually today is the first time that I've actually said quite a lot about me. And I thank you for allowing me to do that. And if anybody wants to contact me, I write lots about safeguarding, keeping children safe and adults safe. So if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. Thank you.
That's what an honor for you to share your story here for the first time. Thank you. I'm grateful, humbled.
Yeah.
Can I just
Andrea,
say as well, Andrea, that my heart was feeling really warm as you was talking, Lorna, and even though you were holding it together, I was nearly bubbling up. So, you know, I don't know, it was like you were doing all right. I was just kind of just holding tight, you know, so thank you for that. And thanks for everybody that's shared so far. So just wanted to let you know you've done good.
And I just say that Tony McClellan is one of the people who has allowed me to be the person that I am now. And I'm truly grateful to her. And I'm truly grateful to Ella, my sister. And I'm truly grateful to the community at Humans First, because Julie and Andrea and Roger, who I've had a conversation with in the breakout room, they are a superb, wonderful community. And I'm going to start crying, so I'm going to stop.
Andrea, Lorna, and this is a gift from Lorna, inspired by Lorna for everyone, and those who have seen my show know that line from me a lot. Lorna, I want you to write this down and never forget this. All that you have ever wanted and everything that you've ever needed to get it is all that you have ever been. Never forget that, ever. Thanks, Andrea.
What a segue, because Stephen DeSede, last but not least, oh my goodness, and he is calling from Australia, which is the middle of the night. Poor Stephen, thank you for being here. But Stephen is one of those people that comes along once in a lifetime. I don't know how the universe brought me to him, but he's here, and he has opened up my world in incredible ways that I would have never imagined. It's interesting because when people ask what Stephen does, and he admits this himself, it's people don't really know how to describe it, because what he does is undescribable. His mission is to leave footprints in people's hearts. His mission is to open doors for others. I have never met such a selfless human being. And his wisdom and words are beyond what I've ever heard. He's a great mentor, and I'm so proud that you're here, and humbled, Stephen.
Can I finish now? We're done. I don't know what to say now. I'm here because of all of you, and I'm here because of you, Andrea. And the news and the announcement Andrea's got to make at the end of this is something I'm really excited about. I get to tell my story quite a lot, and there's DeSede guests. I don't have clients, I don't have customers, I have DeSede guests. My life is based on the philosophy of what a guest is. And a guest in my world is I have an attitude of gratitude for all of you being here. I have an attitude of gratitude of every human being that comes within my space. I want to create a sense of union with everyone. I want to be an example of my expertise. I want it to start at first contact, and I want it to be timeless. So whether it's Roger or Julie or Vik or Ruqya or Lorna, Andrea said, Steve, if you want to say something on the show, because I came on last month and I didn't say anything. And Andrea said, if you want to say stuff, say stuff. So I've just dropped lines in. Roger, you've got a genius of expression. Julie, your intention, your intention immersion is what came to me when I listened. Vik, your fearless confidence was something I needed, so I'm thankful. Ruqya, your papa's glow. You always have been, you always will. And Lorna, the words that came into my soul when I heard you was you have young soul servantship. So for each of you, that's what I heard. I promised Andrea that I would tell my story, but in the context of the pathways of life, and pathways in the context of discovery, enlightenment, and self-acceptance. And I'll do this in a way where pathways are full of stepping stones or pebbles in your shoe. It's one or the other. And your decision and your choices in life will determine your destiny as to whether you're going to hobble down the pathways of life or you're going to skip over the stepping stones of life on the road to your destiny. Because like Roger said repeatedly in Fateful Detours, it's the thin threads that if you reach out to them will lead you to your destiny. Ruqya's children will never be the same again, because when they spoke to me from their soul, as young as they were, I made a decision in that hour together that I was going to influence the direction of their life. And I spoke from that place. So my first message to all of you is, if you have a moment of someone's time, don't second guess whether you should invest in it. Just be you. Don't second guess whether you should be speaking to someone. Just be you. Don't second guess where you've come from in the journey you're on. Don't describe to them the pebbles, describe to them the stepping stones by your example. And I dedicate my life to doing that. I'm obsessed with helping people. So getting up at 3 a.m. is the easiest thing in the world to me. So when my first discovery was I was born into a family of 5 boys, and all my parents wanted was a daughter. And every wedding, every engagement, every 18th, every 21st, I would hear the fateful words that Jeannie and I couldn't grow one without a tail. Tail representing, ladies, he called it a tail, you know what I mean. Every single time I heard him speak, all I got reminded of was what he didn't want. So when I was 6 weeks old in a bassinet, I was overhearing the vibrations of my parents organising to try and adopt me out so they could swap me for a girl. When I got to 12 or 13, the only way that I could find a way of getting recognised was to be elite at sport, and I was elite at sport. I won everything. And I was raised in an all-boys family, in an all-boys school to Christian brothers. So the second biggest influence in your life, particularly from the religious background as well, was teachers. So when I was 12 or 13, the principal and the coach of the football team, 2 Christian brothers, came to my home and asked my parents, Steve wins everything. Do you mind if we give him the ribbon? And this was the second enlightenment in my life. And enlightenment is not always a glowing understanding. Do you mind if we give him the ribbon and we'll give the runner-up the trophy? So I learned early in my life that I wasn't wanted, and I learned early in my life that coming first meant you were recognised as being second. So along the journey of my life, I met a girl. We'd sit on the beach in a place called The Spot, and we'd watch and look over the horizon. And in Western Australia, where I lived, the world's most remote capital city, we'd see planes take off and fly up the coast, heading to Singapore and to Hong Kong, and then on to the wonder of America and the wonder of Europe and the beauty, Lorna, of England, where I lived for a long time. And we sat there watching these planes go, and I asked myself, why is it that hundreds of planes leave from hundreds of airports with tens of thousands of people, and I'm 35 and I've never been anywhere? And I went to an event where a gentleman said that, look at the people who have been doing what you're doing for 5 years longer. If you like the skip and the step, the spark in their eye, the value of their relationships don't change because that's you. And I flew back from Melbourne and I walked into my workplace and I looked at these guys. Some were younger than me because I was about 34, 35. Some were younger. Some were chasing girls and living a kind of life that was over the top promiscuous. Then there was people of my age, and then people that were 10 years older, and they were doing exactly the same thing, working the same way, driving the same car, selling the same products. And I didn't like anything that I saw of them. And all I heard was this man saying, in 5 years' time, that'll be you. At the same time, this sense of discovery and enlightenment came when I read Bill Gates's book, The Road Ahead. And the richest man in the world told a 35-year-old in the middle of my insurance intermediary career that he was going to build a thing called the World Wide Web, the superhighway. And banks would operate without branches, and travel agencies would operate where you could book online, all the things that we take for granted. And he said these words, the concept of disintermediation, cutting out the middleman. And straight away I got triggered. I was going to get not wanted again. So it ended up that we decided to come to England, jump through the story very quickly. And my philosophy was, there's 65 million people there. How could I possibly fail? I'm really good with people. So I walked into England with no project management experience because I wanted to become one of the disintermediators, not the disintermediated. I wanted to become an IT project manager and actually help build things and get outside of the area that was going to be impacted and become one of the impactors. I think it was around the time of the Terminator. So I wanted to have that philosophy of being a disintermediator rather than disintermediated. So I walked into England, no project management experience or qualifications, and you need it. No IT experience, and you needed it. No security clearance, and you needed it. And I walked in at 35 in the middle of when Australia was beating England at all kinds of sport, and sit in rooms sometimes for 9 months over and over and over and over getting rejected, not wanted. Being told by 22-year-olds, why don't you do what most Australians do? Go to Greece, get drunk and get laid and then get home. And I stood in Lime Street once and I just started crying because I was not being wanted again. But I'd lived with it all my life and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And I walked into Marks and Spencer's on one day after this. Chris Dixon had told me to go off to Greece and behave in a way that I never behaved and never will. And I was standing at the store and I thought, stuff it, I'm just going to buy myself something decent to eat because I spent all of my lunch times ringing up and ringing up and ringing up and ringing up. Rejection after rejection after rejection. You're not wanted, you're not wanted, you're not wanted. But I never stopped. And I was standing at Marks and Spencer's one day and I was thinking of giving up. And this old man in a dusty suit, Jamaican fellow, sort of silvery hair. And he came up to me and he said, "You know where the restrooms are, sir?" And I said, "No." And he asked me again and I went, "No." And he asked me again. And I just said, "Look, mate, I don't know." And I was very disrespectful to someone, number one, who was elderly and someone who's been kind. And he turned to me and he just said, "I'm sorry, sir. I thought you were the manager." And he turned around and he walked off. And he walked around the aisle of the Marks and Spencer's, and it was a big long aisle, which is a Macy's type store for the North Americans. And in that moment, I realized I'd been disrespectful to someone because it's not the way I was wired. Because I knew what it was like to be disrespected, so I try every day not to be that to anyone else. And the irony was, it was only moments. I walked around the corner, and when I looked up the aisle, he was gone. And unless the guy was Usain Bolt, there was no way in the world he could have gone. And I decided that day that I would never be disrespectful to anyone else ever again. So over the period of time, I finally got to second interview, and I sat down with this guy called Lawrence Goldberg in Birmingham. And Julie, he had a Manchester United t-shirt on. And I walked up with my $1,000 suit and my tie, 9 months to get to the second interview stage. Ignoring the Greece option, I was going to make this work. And I got there and he took me into the coffee kitchen area and he sat down with his jeans and his trainers and his Man United shirt and he spread his legs like alpha males tend to do. And he just crossed his arms and I sat there. And then I started seeing he was getting ready to say, "You've got this, you don't have this, and you don't have this." So I got up, I took my tie off, I took my jacket off, I sat back down. One of the few times in my life I spread my legs like an alpha male because I don't do that. And I just said to him, "You're going to ask me about change. You're going to ask me how I deal with it. Then you're going to tell me I don't qualify. So let me tell you about change. I'm still learning how to say pence and not cents and pints and not litres. I'm still trying to work out that if this doesn't work, I can't go to mum's place on a Sunday and have roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. I didn't buy my ticket to quit, and all I want you to do is give me a job. I just need a chance, and in 6 months' time, I'll get promoted over the top of you." Everyone, start the self-acceptance point in your life where you claim what you are, even in the midst of abominable failure. He gave me the job. Don't know how, but I finally spoke up rather than subserviently letting them throw me out the door. About three months at the end of my probation, a guy, Greg Naylor, and everyone, how specific are you about the stories in your life, right down to trainers and Man United and Greg Naylor. And this Greg guy said, "Steve, your probation's up. Why don't you get them to give you a home address contract and then get a laptop, and every time you travel, you can cover all your costs." Perfect. Ring Wendy Brooks. So I ring this Wendy Brooks lady, having no idea who this lady is. I just thought she was the girl who kept the laptops in Cable and Wireless globally. So I ring up, and I didn't know that she was walking past her PA's desk, thin threads, everyone. I didn't know that she was walking past her desk and picking up the phone because her PA had gone for a restroom break or wherever she was gone. And so this lady called Wendy answers, and I flirtatiously said, I didn't say flirtatious, she did. I just said, "Hi, Wendy, I heard you have the keys to the laptop cabinet. I want one." And she flirtatiously said something which was her style. And she then said, "Well, you have to wow me." And in the years of reading all the books, and the Bill Gates book, I'd read Tom Peters' The Pursuit of Wow. For those of you who don't know the book, it's worth reading. For those of you who have not YouTubed Tom Peters' The Brand is the Talent, it's worth YouTubing and watching the 3-minute video. And as soon as I heard it, I knew straight away what she was talking about. You have to wow me. The next day, I found out that Wendy Brooks was actually flying on the Concorde back and forward each day as one of the deputy directors of Cable and Wireless's £250 million project. She was way past the laptop lady. I don't know how I worked this out, but a couple of weeks later, I knew she was in Georgetown, and I found which hotel she was in. I sent her, and I knew the nature of the way that they worked. At 5:30, they'd finish work, 6 o'clock, they'd get changed, 6:30, they'd be out in the drinks on expenses. I just knew that's how it worked. So it's 5:30, 5:45, I organised for the hotel, and they wouldn't, I said, "I knew she's staying there, you don't have to tell me the room." I've organised for white roses, which was appropriate, and chocolates to be delivered to her room. And all the card had on it, no name, no Wendy, all it said is this wow enough? 3 weeks later, she asked me to come to her office, and she gave me a laptop. And when I went to reach for it, she slammed her hand on the desk. It was 5.5 months after I told Lawrence I'd get promoted over the top of him. And she said, "You've got to come work for me, otherwise you can't have it." That job led me to the global intranet team. That job led me to being in the London Underground control centres on the day of the London bombings. That connection of how wow, is this wow enough, Wendy, put me on a plane 3 days later to Homeland Security, and I started being contracted by the UK and the US governments on counter-terrorism and immigration. I was a long way from Greece because I discovered that on the journey of enlightenment, I would never, ever, ever stop. So all of a sudden, over the next 3 years, we started buying houses all over the world. We started helicoptering into Monte Carlo. I started owning 65 pairs of watches. I started to become abundant, and I turned my marriage into a commercial partnership. And before I knew it, it ruptured. And in 2007, I walked out with my bags and left everything behind. Because when we were sitting at the spot, I fell in love with my wife, and I taught her how to be commercial. So when I finally got to, in 2007, by mid-2008, I put the roof down in a convertible and I tried to kill myself, because if there was no house, there was no houses all over the world, there was no money, there was no golden girl, the love of my life. If there was just me, and I always a runner-up, why don't you just kill yourself? So while everyone talks about suicide, the DeSede guests on this call have actually seen the convertible that I tore in half and I survived. And the police let me off, and can't tell that story right now. But they told me, "We're going to let you off because you were dead drunk and in total shock, and all you did was to ask about the welfare of the girls while we were pulling you out of the car. And you were so incoherent to your consciousness. You were speaking the soul truth. You were so sorry for what you did for them, but you didn't care about yourself. So we're going to let you off." And I never got fined. They just let me off. But he walked to the door and he turned around. He said, "But you better effing earn this." Pardon me, ladies. I came back to Australia and I walked along the beaches. I had no money. I had nothing. I was being to dumb down my CV. We're back in Perth because no one wanted to employ me because I was too qualified. Rejection after rejection after rejection. So I started walking along the beach listening to YouTube videos about self-esteem. And along the way, I heard a guy called Brian Tracy. And then he asked me to put his details in a web page. I didn't know it was a funnel and a landing page and all the stuff that I know now. And then a guy called Brendan Bouchard. I didn't know about affiliate marketing. Before you knew it, I was actually in Santa Clara. I had to ask the Australian government, the guy that used to helicopter everywhere, I was asking the Australian government if I could leave because I was a bankrupt and they wanted to have to give me my passport back. And I went to Santa Clara. I had $97 in the bank, borrowing the fruit from the gyms in the morning. Go to the event, go back to my room at lunchtime, go to the event, go back to my room because I couldn't afford the networking because I had to get from Santa Clara to San Francisco to Los Angeles to Sydney to Perth, no travel insurance with $97 in the bank. What's the worst that was going to happen? Someone was going to not want me at LAX? Who cares? I've not been wanted my whole life, but I was going to find a way to work out what it is that I could do for people. Because my nickname in the projects I work with around the world was the fridge. Steve doesn't do anything, but if he's in the room, things happen. That's what I got paid an awful amount of money to do nothing except be in the room and electrify people's souls. And so along the way, I started making videos. I never showed anyone. And Andrea and Melody and Maxine are now watching videos that are 10 years old, but I never showed anyone because I didn't think I was good enough. My journey to self-acceptance hadn't arrived. Every single day I get comments like Andrea mentioned in her introduction. Only this morning here yesterday here in Australia, Maxine saying, I don't know how to describe what you do or what you've done to my life. And then I wrote a book, Roger, because one of my team that transcribed my videos had a baby, and after 159 days, he died. So I wrote a book called Nathaniel's Chance, and I live my life every single day as if it was Nathaniel's 160th. I'm on a mission to destroy doubt. I'm on a mission to introduce you to your potential, and I am relentless in everything I do. And along the journey last year, when we got locked down in COVID and everything, a guy in America that's an Emmy Award winner and an Oscar winner, he won those awards, and his wife left him and he lost everything in terms of his confidence, and he found me on Instagram. We did some coaching and everything. And then at the beginning of last year, he said, Steve, someone asked me where I've got my mojo back. Matthew, you're back. Where'd it come from? I've been working with this guy in Australia. He goes, what does he do? I can't explain it. So Matthew said, Steve, pick up your iPhone, get on Instagram and get people to ask you questions and answer them on the spot. No one will believe what you can do on the spot. So we decided to create a show called Inspiring Insights, because I got the girls that work for me. What are the three things, everyone, what is the three most common words that people use to describe you? What are they? Find out, because that's your marketing gold. So I got the girls to go through my comments, and the things that came out was inspiring, insightful, and wisdom. So we created a show called Inspiring Insights, putting stuff on a whiteboard and getting people to ring me. People I don't even know, I'm having to write their name down because I don't know who they are. And they come on the screen and they ask me about remote working. They come on the screen and they ask me about culture. They come on the screen and I'm writing their name down. And while I'm writing their name down, they're going, Steve, I'm so honored to be here. My name's Judy. My husband 30 years ago, my ex-husband sexually abused my son and I've never forgiven. I'm still writing her name down and she's asking. And I'm looking up and looking at her face going, I have no idea who you are and you're speaking into, you're asking me that? When have you accepted the responsibility of your gift? Or are you still waiting for someone to give you permission? Because I waited, and every single person of the 53 that rolled up and asked me instant questions, every single one of them proved to me that I can do this. So a few days ago, as I told the DeSede guest in the cafe yesterday morning, I sat on the harbour in Sydney and I looked at the skies, knowing that if I keep doing this, people are going to come with their suicidal thoughts. They're going to come as they did yesterday with their 16-year-old son being abusive in the home. They're going to come as they did 2 weeks ago because their relationship of 13 years was conducted with a man that beat them, and they ring up and ask me what to do. So everyone, have you accepted the responsibility of what you are? Whether you can do videos, whether you can actually have people asking you that question. Have you accepted the responsibility that the child that looks at you is looking for the example of hope? You don't have to be doing fancy videos. You don't have to be doing these instantaneous things that I do, but you need to accept who you are. You need to accept the responsibility by discovering the enlightenment of the journeys of your life and never, ever, ever quitting. Not quitting just on yourself, but quitting on those that look up to you like your children do. I'm in a love affair with humanity, and I'm on a mission to destroy doubt. I won't allow anyone to look in the mirror and not love what they see. So I spend my life walking around the world, polishing people's mirror and daring them not to see what I see. Papa loves you, Ruqya. And Andrea, the reason I chose you. Be well and be brilliant, everyone. Thank you.
There's a whole bunch of wows and speechless, and the comments are wonderful, Stephen. Always so much to think about what you say, and thank you for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and human in everything that you do all the time. Stephen said there was an announcement, and there is indeed an announcement, and I'm still, I can't believe this is happening. But if you saw, I have this cool new mic, and I have some lights, and I have a new, I don't look like a telemarketer anymore. It's because I'm actually, Stephen asked me to co-host with him the next season of Inspiring Insights show, which I'm blown away, and it's going to start August 8th, I believe, Stephen.
April.
Oh my
April
gosh.
8th, which is just happens to be my birthday, which is cool.
April 8th.
Yeah, and
April
everyone just
8th.
yeah, everyone, just so you know, and just listen to these words, everyone. Kelly, for example, who was on the rally a month ago, Kelly actually gets flown around on private jets to do commercials for different companies. She's actually coordinated NASA doing Facebook live streams, and Kelly's actually was speaking with me out of California on her trip where she is at the moment, and said, Steve, your show is as near to broadcast quality as on LinkedIn that I've ever seen. And she said, I want to help you take it to the next level, because she said, I believe in your mission. So season 2 of the Inspiring Insights show is we're setting up to literally be something that almost doesn't fit on social media, because you don't. You don't. Social media doesn't define who you are. You do. And as I said in the cafe yesterday, if everyone stopped posting on social media, there would be no social media. So I asked Andrea, not because she's got production ability, I asked Andrea not even because she's got lights and camera and the stuff that we need from her, because everything we do in the show, we cut up. I do a 2.5 hours coaching, it's called group coaching, but it's called the DeSede Cafe inside the Institute. Last week, we did a 2.5 hour session, and I cut out 30 things I drew on the whiteboard. And when I draw things on the whiteboard, they're models of what you can go and do. My success in life is determined by what you can apply 15 minutes after you stop hearing me. And if I've failed at that, I'm failing. So what I want you to do, everyone, is I want you to work out what are the 3 words that everyone describes about you, and discover that, and the enlightenment that'll come from it, and then the self-acceptance of the responsibility of what those words mean in your life. I didn't ask for this. I don't know how I do it. People ask me on the spot stuff, and Andrea knows this because she's seen me do it over and over and over. I don't know how I'm doing it. And then in the middle of the show, people go, Steve, can you repeat that? And I literally don't know what I just said. I didn't ask for this gift. Your life is a gift, everyone. Stop asking for permission and go and be the best version of you. So go and have a genius of expression beyond just your books. Your smile, Roger, is an expression of hope in itself. Immerse in your intention and stop worrying about the labels, Julie. Forget about them. Yes, never forget the conditioning, because I don't. I am ever so grateful my parents gave me my life. But I've lived and worked to overcome the resentment that they wouldn't be proud to have a son called me. So now I'm adopted by everyone around the world. I get called uncle in 5 languages. I'm godparents to children I've never met. And I live my life dedicated to a little boy who was born dead. And I had everything, and I tried to leave because I thought I wasn't enough. You are enough, everyone. You are Papa's glow, Ruqya. And your young soul servantship, Lorna, is just a beautiful expression. Stop waiting for people to give you permission and start looking in the mirror and love what you see. Go and find from the people you do life with, what are the 3 words that describe you? And as I always say to everyone, and I'll finish on this, Andrea, go and ask people, what is my impact? And use exactly these words, everyone, because I've done this many times, and the reaction people get is initially, I can't do that, Steve. And then all of a sudden I get 3 pages of questions or answers. Go and ask people that you do life with, what is my impact on your humanity? In brackets, humanity defined as the quality of being human. How do I impact your quality of being human? Ask them, and then listen. Because they won't tell you what you do, they'll tell you who you are. And from that place of who you are, you can identify the self-acceptance of the responsibility of the gift that you are, because you are. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Stephen.
You said you wanted me to go for it, so I did.
Yes, you did go for it.
You told me.
That's for sure.
You said that's what you wanted. So there you go.
Can I just say as well that that was a fantastic story, Steve? I did enjoy it. I just want to say, Andrea, I think this is a fabulous platform, and I want to big you up as well. And I just want to shout out to all of the storytellers today. I don't know what it was, but I was emotionally moved by everybody's story. I was really, really struggling to hold it together, which is very unlike me, if you know me. So I just want to say, whatever it was, you've done it good, and just keep doing what you're doing. And you know, it was just a pleasure to be here today. So thank you, Andrea, and everyone that told this story. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And Tony's another rock star, another mentor of mine. So I appreciate that, Tony. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Someone else had
Sorry, I was going to say I have to echo what Tony said and what so many other people have said, either in person or through the chat. And I tell Andrea this every time. I have literally not attended one of these. I've been here from the beginning. I have never been able to make it all the way through without bawling. This one, I turned my camera. I mean, Stephen, you just had me going. I turned my camera off. And then I got to thinking, you know what? The power of what you were saying and the power of people's reactions are part of what make the speaker able to do what they're doing, if that makes sense. So when when anyone is telling you a story, the reaction of the audience is what is real and genuine and gives just as much inspiration and power back to the speaker. So that's why I turned my camera back on. I'm not really proud of it because I'm just totally bawling, but I know that it's the reaction of the audience that really helps the speaker as well get, you know, their message across. So yeah.
Thank you, Monique.
And thank you, Andrea.
Monique, to cry is to refresh your soul. And I don't know why people are embarrassed to cry. I mean, on the cafe yesterday, I was upset quite a lot because I was admitting to my truth. If you don't cry, crying is the expression of your soul and the self-acceptance of your truth. And everyone goes, I can't show my vulnerability. Why not? Now, don't take this wrong way, everyone, but listen to the whole thing, because when I say this, some people go, oh my goodness, I don't care what you think of me. You know why? Because I'm obsessed with how you care about you. I don't have to worry about whether you think I'm good, bad, or indifferent. I'm too busy worrying about whether you're okay. So I don't care what people think about me, because I know my truth and my genuineness is my obsessive servantship towards your heart. Because I know, because of this gift that I've got, people are going to place their souls and their hearts in my hand. So I am so careful. My hope in my life and ambition is to open the door of every DeSede lady that's involved in the DeSede Institute. I just want to come to your place and open your door because I want to be that chivalrous because of the gratitude I have, because you made me realize what they didn't want, humanity now wants, this gift of whatever it is. So Monique, the next time you decide to shed a tear, it's your soul cleansing. And when your soul's cleansed, your heart opens. When your heart opens, your mind's creativity and thoughts become the things that you crave for. So don't be afraid to cry, because the people who show emotion are the ones who are the leaders in life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
I was just going to add that it's so funny that for 2 days, I didn't know what I was going to talk about for most of the day, most of the weeks. I really wasn't sure how I was going to put this talk. And up to last night, the funniest thing happened. I was sitting down in my living room and I was like, okay, I need to take a break, a mental break about how I'm going to articulate this talk. I've been racking my brain about it. And funny enough, right comes up on my Netflix was Brené Brown. And it was a special that she had given on courage. Ultimately, she was talking about vulnerability. And that it's not a weakness, that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay because it helps you to be courageous and helps you to be strong. And in that moment, it was as if she was speaking to me personally and saying, go give that talk tomorrow. It'll be okay. And within that space of like an hour, the entire thing, the story that I wanted to tell just kind of came together. And people will show up in your life like that in so many different ways every time. No matter what is happening in your life in any particular moment, there's always someone who's going to show up and show you who they are and give you something that you never expected. And I think every speaker here today gave a gift that we can never replace. So if you shared space, held space today with us, thank you. And I look forward to joining you again so that I can hear other stories, because I really enjoyed this moment. Normally at this time of the day, I'd be coaching someone. So I had to move around some stuff, but I'm glad that I did that. And I'm glad that I got to meet so many beautiful, amazing people. Thank you to all the people who connected on LinkedIn so far. Thank you. But I'm really grateful that I got to meet all of you beautiful people. Trust that I have followed all of you because I can't connect anymore. But I have followed everyone, and I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you one-on-one. And Andrea, that one-on-one has to happen.
Julie, if you want to, and this is for everyone, if you want to tell a really great story or you want to capture your story, these are the 3 things you need to do. Sit back with a coffee, a glass of wine, whatever it is, and go, what do I love about what I've done and how I've survived? What am I proud of about what I've done and how I've survived? And what is it that I want for others? If you ask those 3 questions and reflect on your story, you'll be the great storyteller. That's a very simple way of doing it. What do you love about who you are? What are you proud of about what you've done? And what do you want for others? And if you cut your story down in the discovery, enlightenment, and self-acceptance under those, you're good to go. And that's what you did. Just get rid of the labels that society has placed on you.
Those labels are a killer of dreams, killer of becoming who you are. That's for sure. Oh my goodness, this has been incredible, amazing. Every rally evolves into something even more powerful, if that's even possible. I want to really, really thank our storytellers today: Dorothy, Roger, Julie, Vik, Ruqya, Lorna, Stephen. I'm speechless. Your vulnerability, your courage, your words of wisdom, your inspiration, thinking of others despite everything that you've gone through, but always have others in mind, and what you can lessons you can pay forward. It's amazing, and this is what it's all about: is being kind to others. Grateful. So I invite you. I know we're way over, and for those of you that stayed on, bless you. It means a lot. I loved hearing all the comments, enriching discussions. Join us next month, as always, the last Saturday of every month. Rally for Hope and Kindness. Always looking for storytellers. You just have to be you. It doesn't matter if you've spoken or not. If you're interested, please DM me, reach out to me. And I invite you, if you haven't already, to connect with all these individuals. Stephen has the DeSede Institute online. He has a group called Soul Shifters. Look, hashtag Soul Shifters on LinkedIn. That's the one that I'm involved in, which changed my life. Humans First, humansfirstclub.org is another wonderful association, organization that has changed my life as well. Houston Writers Guild, so many people. So thank you for being here, guys, and I have a blessed rest of the weekend.